All right, so we're going to speed round this one. This week already, it is Tuesday, Monday. Yesterday the video went out, and on my way to work this morning, had a flat tire. And it completely ruined one tire. And I was already kind of kicking around the idea of, do I need to put smaller tires on the front whenever I go to lower the front? Because I did notice it scrubbed on one of the fenders whenever I turned all the way. And I hadn't lowered the front end of the truck yet. I already had to buy one tire, and I have no spare. So I decided, screw it. We'll go with a smaller size front tire, and that'll be able to give us a spare and everything. So there's the old tire and the wheel for a spare. Had the wheel the whole time, but I haven't had a tire for it. Now I've got the combination, and I went with a smaller tire up here in the front. And yes, it looks goofy. It looks goofy with that little dinky tire on there, but the goal is to bring the truck down over top of it to make the tire fit better. Because right now, it already brought the truck down to a rake, putting a smaller radius tire on the front. It's only about an inch difference height-wise. So 2 inches overall tire size, and 1 inch of sidewall top and bottom. So 2 inches shorter tire, 1 inch of radius all the way around. Or I don't know, circumference, I don't know, math. But I'm gonna now jack the truck up, take the coils out, and we're gonna cut a coil off and put it all back together and see how that sets. Now, whenever I first bought this jack, I bought this jack specifically because of how low it sits. And I mean, there's my finger to the jack. I don't even think they make this one anymore. This was a 2-ton, super low profile Pittsburgh. I don't even think they make this one anymore. But I bought it because of how low it sits. And there's my finger. I could get up off the ground and find a tape measure, but it barely, like just barely scrubbed the bottom. I actually kind of had to pick the front of my old truck up to slide it over, and it was static dropped on Crown Vic front suspension, just the front suspension. This one's a full frame, and you can see how much I have in there right now. Actually, let me get a tape measure. 5 5/16 on that side. 5 1/4 on this side. And right now, I don't know if y'all can tell, but the control arms are barely sitting with the outside down, just a hair. Like, this is not sitting flat. The outside is lower than the bottom of the cross member by just a hair. So what I'll show you is, my dad has a Grand Marquis, and it's bone stock. So this is his daily driver car, but right now it's got a couple little things out. So we gotta get it patched back up. And his sits about right there. And that's the same distance on everything. And it's pretty much the same. Now, with that being said, my old truck was, like I said, barely you could fit that jack under the front. And I scrubbed the cross member like 4 times on the ground in all the time that I drove it. And we're not going to go that low. We do need to get a little bit out of the front of the truck, so that way it'll look more aggressive. Because with the super flat stance, it kind of looked more tail dragger style, not very like muscle truck hot roddy. So that's what we're going to try to get right now, is get that front nose down a little bit more, so we can get a little bit more aggressive look out of it. And then eventually I want to figure out something to do back here about narrowing an axle or something eventually, so we can get a little bit of a dish out of these wheels, which I would do the cut up this wheel, move the face back and all that, but that's down the road. But what can we do right now to solve this problem of getting the altitude set right? And the fastest and easiest way is a cutoff wheel to those front coils. There's one cut, and I'm not gonna have y'all watch. I mean, it's sketchy. It's scary. I had my wife and daughter go sit on the other side of the shop with the vehicle in between them. So if something were to happen, it's got to go through a truck. I'm just gonna keep working on this. The last time I did the Crown Vic coils cut, it was the same amount of sketch. So it seems to be pretty normal for cutting these. The police interceptor, from what I understand, the police interceptor ones are a more aggressive coil than like the normal Crown Vic or the Grand Marquis. And both of my trucks have been police interceptors. So I'm going to keep working on this one. Whenever we're starting on reassembly, I'll show y'all. But for right now, I'm just going to work and not focus on the camera because I don't want to risk hurting myself while I'm trying to show y'all anything. So give me a little bit and we'll start a reassembly. So it's all back together and y'all are going to get a chance to see it before I do. Now, I'm going to say it. Still got to pull the truck out and back in so that way it'll all settle into place too. So, no matter how high it sits, once I do this, it's still going to drop just a hair. That's tucking good. That has the attitude I was shooting for. That's got the rake down in the front that I was really wanting. So y'all can see it pretty decent here in that shot. But we'll get a daytime look at it as well tomorrow. But for tonight, that's where we're gonna call it. And the next thing we need to work on is putting that, build that cover for in here. So I've been driving the truck for a couple days with the front lowered down. And right now, the front end is sitting at 3 3/4 of an inch of height off the ground as compared to what the height was before. I'm gonna put that in right now. I said it in a video earlier, but I'll go ahead and put that right here and an equation right here to tell you how much drop I took out of it. I think it's like 2 inches, 1.5 inches, something like that. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Next thing we're gonna tackle here is this bed floor cover. So right now I'm gonna figure out what my best line to draw is for us to build the main structure. My guess is to just build a structure that fits underneath that and then set it up there. So just do it anyway and then just put it up on top of there and just make it work. So let me measure that out and make the structure real quick. So I just measured in between there and I got 49 exactly from wheel well to wheel well. So I said, I'll take 48.5, take 1/4 inch off each side. Came over here, measured this, and I cut off these little slivers the other day. And that is exactly 48.5. So it's gonna fit perfect. So now I need to build a 48.5 by whatever the length of this is, rectangle frame. And what I'll do is build a rectangle frame with one brace in the center that way. And then that can go up and sit into place here. And then we'll figure out the bracing height from there to the bottom, there to the bottom, an angle iron across. And then up here, this is where everything's gonna get a little tricky, but I've already got it in my head on how I'm gonna build that. Now that I've got all these cut, what my plan is, set these on here, and I know I'm gonna burn in it. Well, I tell you what, not set them on there. I'm gonna put them on the ground over here. I was thinking of putting them on there, but I just realized with that whoop-de-doo, the ends are gonna fall off. So, which one's the short one? Short one. Short one's gonna go in the middle, and I'll get a tape measure. I'll get a tape measure out here. We'll get everything all squared up. Because that's what my goal is. I want to weld that up, get that welded to it, and then we can weld our ends to make the stanchion to put it in there, put it in the truck. Let me get the welder out. Let me get this all. All right, so last night I got this piece all welded to it, and I made some little tabs on here that this is the backside closest to the toolbox. So now what I'm gonna do is I have the angle iron, and I've already marked out where it needs to be punched with holes to be drilled into the bed. But what I'm gonna do next is weld a piece of sheet metal across here, and then the angle iron is going to weld to that. I think it'll just physically look, or appearance wise, look better that way. So I'm going to punch holes in that and cut out that sheet metal and get it welded to this, and then that piece can be welded to here. Once all of that's done, we can put it in the truck and then figure out the other side, because the other side's going to be the complicated side. This one is just simple. It's just squared off. So let me keep working on that, and once I get this all wrapped up, we'll all work on the back piece together. All right, so this whole side is done and welded. I don't have the bolt holes drilled in here yet, but I was trying to figure out what I'm gonna do about this side, because if you see, there is a space between them. So now I've got to make pieces to come up to here. I'm gonna do 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'll put a plate from here to the angle iron, and that'll seal the deal. And I'm just gonna make the plate come from here to the top of this, because this comes up flat and then breaks over, so it'll kind of match a little bit better. And then I'm just gonna put a plate on this side to cover up this side, probably back to about right here, so that way you don't have a gap in here. It'll look more appealing. That side, you have the fuel tank, and I like it. It's just something basic, something simple. But now I've got to make the kickers come down for those 3, and I can start plating all this up. All right, so here's what I did. I set a floor jack up on this end because this obviously was being, there was nothing down here on this end. So what I did was I set the floor jacks up, and now I can drop them. I measured out, got it all set up. So what I'm gonna do here is, that's welded on. I'm gonna take this over and test it in the back of the truck, and we'll see if it works. If it does, then we'll plate that side off, and then plate this one side over here, and this will all be completed. So now I can take this back out of here and take it over on the floor, make the plate that's going to cover this part, and weld it all up, make a plate covering this corner, probably just down to here and up to there, just a little triangle. That'll cover that, just so that way you don't see this side. Because like I said, over here you got a fuel tank, and this had to make sure it came out and covered all of the gas tank. So it ended up with one little corner over here that I'm not thrilled about, but it's not terrible. I can make it work. I'll take this back out of the truck, go make that plate, punch our holes in it, and I can paint this part and then put it in here. And I've got bolts to drill and mount this in for good. I kind of like it. It's kind of comfortable sitting on it. It'll be nice sitting on it on the side of the road because it's got a Chevy motor in it, waiting for a tow truck. So, all right, let me pull this thing out and get back to work. So I came up here this morning and got this whole side done. So we've got welded to it, rounded over, welded to the floor, got the edges nice and rounded. And now I'm working on painting the backside. Got my Tractor Supply tractor paint, just brushing it on, get a nice good coat. You can see a lot of it starting to dry. Get this bottom painted, and then I'll come over here, work on this side, get it all painted, then let this dry, flip it, paint the other side. And then while this is final curing, we've got a couple of things to do on the truck, and then we can work on getting this installed. But one of the things I want to do, I need to get underneath this, so I need to do it now before it goes on. So let me finish getting this all painted, and we'll move the truck outside and get it jacked up, because I'm going to be dealing with gas, and I don't want to deal with that inside of the shop. I'd rather move it out and deal with it outside. All right, so I mean, get back to painting. All right, so I dug back into this fuel sending unit situation, and the only thing I can come up with is the sending unit has a ground on it here. Maybe whenever I was taking this thing out, somehow inside of here it decided to start grounding, but it only happens whenever you fully tighten this in, tighten in the main ring. So I think maybe it's grounding against here. And so my solution is, I've got these two little pieces, and what I'm going to do is take these, they're plastic, they're thin little plastic, and I'm going to pull this bolt out, pull the bolt out of the bottom, use that to space it off of it, so we can try to isolate it where it's not touching, and see if maybe we can try to solve the issue that way. I mean, it still doesn't fully answer it, because I mean the bolt's gonna go through it, and it's still gonna, but maybe there's something inside of there that's touching. We're just gonna try it. It ain't nothing to do it, so we're gonna give it a shot, see what happens. All right, so the fuel tank issue is apparently never gonna get solved, so we're just gonna move on. So that's in. Now I just got to drill and mount the bolts on that, and this is officially covered. So let me do that real quick, and I'll show you the finished result. So there is the cover completely bolted in and finished. I really like it. It looks nice and clean. Still unbolts to service anything down below it if we ever needed to pull it out, which the only reason why you'd have to pull that out is to get the gas tank out. Besides that, from what I've learned, the fuel sending unit and everything is serviceable from the top. Speaking of sending unit, I don't know, there's too much wizardry or something going on with that thing. It doesn't make any sense. I said, okay, we got a grounding issue, so let me just trim the ground and see what that does. I clipped the ground off of it and it still works regardless. But the minute you tighten the bolts into the tank, you lose it. I put an isolator in it. I've tried all kinds of stuff. I'm almost completely at a loss, but I'm going to call it there for today. We got a lot done, and we got a lot coming. I messed up a little bit a couple minutes ago. I was playing with some ideas of something to do with the wheels, and I had tape all over one of them, and I screwed that one all up. So I was thinking about if I should repaint it, but if I can get what I want to get done this week, I'm going to have to repaint the wheels anyway. There's a little hint. So let me see what I can do this coming week about getting the pieces that I want. And if so, man, there's a big makeover coming for the truck without spending any money. So, appreciate y'all watching. Seeing the truck coming together. It's looking nice. It's looking pretty. But definitely one of the big key factors that helped out this week was lowering that front end down. So, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.